I never imagined that the worst betrayal of my life would come from the woman who raised me, not from an enemy, not from a rival, not from a stranger, but from my own mother. The day it happened did not feel dramatic at first. There was no shouting, no argument, no warning. It came quietly, almost politely, and that made it worse. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind of afternoon where time feels slower, where your guard is down, where you believe you are safe. I was sitting in my home office, a room that represented everything I had survived. Years ago, this room did not exist. Back then, I worked from a kitchen table, from coffee shops, from borrowed spaces. Now the walls were clean. The desk was solid. The window looked out over a city that finally felt like mine. On my laptop were numbers: charts growth forecasts $5.2 million. That was the value of the business I built from nothing. Every time I saw that number, my chest felt tight, not because of greed, but because of memory. I remembered being broke. I remembered checking my bank account before buying food. I remembered lying awake at night asking myself if I had ruined my life by chasing a dream. And now here I was running a company, employing people, making decisions that mattered. I had done it alone. My phone rang. I barely looked at it. Mom, she called often, especially after the business became successful. At first, I thought it was pride. Later, I realized it was curiosity. I answered, "Hey, Mom." Her voice sounded calm, too calm. She asked how I was doing, asked about work, asked if I was eating properly. Normal questions, safe questions. But something in her tone felt controlled, like she was following a script. Then she paused, a long pause, the kind that makes your body tense before your mind understands why. She said my name slowly, the same way she used to say it when I was a kid and I'd done something wrong. I straightened in my chair without realizing it. She said, "We need to talk." I smiled lightly. "Sure," I said. "What is it?" Another pause. Then she said it. She said she had made a decision. That word decision landed heavy. I asked what kind of decision. She said it was about the business. My stomach tightened. She told me she had transferred ownership. I waited for her to continue because that sentence alone made no sense. Transferred to who, I asked. She answered without hesitation, "Your sister." For a moment, everything stopped, not just sound, but thought. I stared at the wall at my desk, at my laptop, still showing projections that now felt meaningless. I laughed quietly, not because it was funny, but because my mind refused to accept it. "Mom," I said. "What are you talking about?" She repeated it slow, clear. She said it was for the family. She said your sister needs stability. She said you're strong enough to start again. That sentence hurt more than all the others. Strong enough to start again. As if the years I gave meant nothing. As if starting over was easy. As if my work was something she could simply move from one person to another. I stood up. My heart was racing. My hands felt cold. "How could you do that?" I asked. She sighed, the kind of sigh that carries no regret. She said everything was legal. She said it was already done. She said there was no reason to get upset. No reason. That was the moment the warmth left my body. I realized she was not asking for my opinion, she was informing me. I ended the call. I did not shout. I did not argue. I simply ended it. I sat back down slowly. And for the first time since I started that company, I felt something worse than failure. I felt erased. As I sat there, memories started flooding in. Memories I had ignored for years. Because this betrayal did not start that day, it started in childhood. Growing up, I was always the quiet one, the responsible one, the child who did not cause trouble. My sister was different. She was emotional, always struggling, always needing help. If she failed a class, my parents blamed the teacher. If I failed, they asked why I did not try harder. If she quit a job, it was because the workplace was toxic. If I worked late, I was told I cared too much about money. My mother always said. She loved us both the same. But love is not what people say. It is what they protect. And my sister was always protected. I learned early that in our family, weakness was rewarded, strength was expected, and silence was safest. So I became silent when I decided to start my Business, no one supported me. They told me to get a real job. They told me I was being irresponsible. My sister laughed and said I was chasing fantasies, so I stopped explaining. I worked quietly. Years passed. The business struggled, then survived, then grew slowly at first, then faster. When money started coming in, everything changed. Suddenly, my parents were interested. They asked questions. They wanted updates. My mother called more often. She asked about structure, about ownership, about the future. I thought she was proud. I wanted her to be proud. That was my weakness. When the company crossed its first million, she suggested involving family. She said your sister feels lost. She said maybe the business could give her purpose. She said family supports each other. Every instinct inside me said no. But I ignored it. I gave my sister a small role, then another. She struggled, missed deadlines, complained. My mother defended her. She said she needs time. I gave her more access, more responsibility. Not because she earned it, but because I wanted peace. Because I wanted approval. Because I still believed fairness would come. Instead, I gave them access. I gave them visibility. I gave them trust. They watched. They waited. Meetings happened without me. Conversations I was not part of. Documents I never saw. By the time I realized what was happening, it was already done. That Sunday afternoon was not the betrayal. It was the reveal. They expected me to accept it, to stay quiet, to move on. They thought taking the business meant taking my power. But they were wrong. Because as I sat there staring at my screen, something inside me shifted. I realized something important. They took the company, but they did not take what built it. They did not take my mind, my discipline, my relationships. And that was the moment I stopped reacting and started thinking, because when people believe they have already won, that is when they make their biggest mistakes. Did not sleep that night. My body was tired, but my mind refused to shut down. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my mother's voice again. Calm, certain, unmoved. She had taken everything I built, and she did it without hesitation. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the city outside. This was not just about money, or control, or pride. This was about trust. And trust, once broken, does not shatter loudly. It collapses slowly. From the inside. By morning, I knew one thing. I could not stay silent, not yet. I needed to look them in the eyes. I needed to hear how they justified it. I needed to understand how my own family could do this and still sleep at night. I called my sister. She answered on the third ring. Her voice sounded different, confident, almost relaxed, as if the weight I was carrying had lifted from her shoulders instead. We agreed to meet that afternoon at a cafe near our childhood home. A neutral place, safe, public, the kind of place where people believe nothing bad can happen. When I arrived, she was already there. Sitting straight, phone in hand, coffee untouched. She looked up and smiled. That smile hurt more than anger ever could. I sat down across from her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I asked the question that had been burning in my chest. Since yesterday, how long did you know? She looked away, then back at me. She said Mom handled it. I asked again, how long did you know? She exhaled slowly. A few months, she said, a few months. While I was working, planning, building, they were planning something else. I asked her how she could agree to it. She shrugged. She said it made sense. She said Mom thought it would be better for the family. I asked, better for who? She did not answer. I leaned forward, my voice calm but shaking. Did you ever think to ask me? She finally looked uncomfortable. She said you were always so intense. She said you always want control. She said you never share. That was the moment I understood something important. They were not stealing. They were justifying. In their minds, I was not the victim. I was the problem. I reminded her of the years I worked, of the sacrifices, of the nights I slept in my office. She nodded, but her eyes were empty. She said you were good at starting things, but now it needs a different kind of leadership. That sentence landed like a slap. A different kind of leadership. Meaning hers, I asked her one last question. If the roles were reversed, if she had built something, would she have given it to me? She laughed softly, not cruelly, not kindly, just honestly. She said no, and there it was. The truth. I stood up. I did not raise my voice. I did not cause a scene. I just stood. I told her I hoped she understood what they were doing. She said everything will be fine. She said, you will see. I walked out without responding as I stepped into the street. The world felt different, louder, sharper. People rushed past me, living their normal lives. They had no idea that my entire identity had just been ripped apart. I watched from a distance as the chaos unfolded at my old company. Mistakes piled up. Deadlines were missed. Employees whispered in meetings. Clients expressed frustration. It was painful. Not because of satisfaction, but because I knew it could have been prevented. The first sign of real panic came in a text from my sister. A single word? Help. No explanation, no excuses. Just desperation. I didn't respond. I let them feel the weight of their own choices. Calls came next. At first, my mother tried the polite approach, calm voice, apologetic tone, small request. For guidance, each call met with silence. Then came urgency, anxiety, confusion. They realized too late that they had underestimated the complexity of running the business. One morning, a major client reached out to me, clearly shaken, explaining the missed deadlines, the lack of communication, the rising frustration. I listened quietly, letting them reveal every mistake, every weak decision, every failure. I asked a few careful questions, and nothing more. That evening, my sister sent me a long email, almost a confession disguised as a request for help. She admitted she did not understand the systems I built, admitted she was overwhelmed, admitted mistakes were piling up, and that the business was in jeopardy. And then she asked for my help. I read it, closed the laptop, and thought revenge was not about destruction. It was about patience, letting them face the consequences of their own choices. The next day I met them. The same cafe as before. They were tense, uncertain, desperate. I listened as they detailed their struggles. The clients leaving, projects collapsing, staff quitting. I did not raise my voice. I did not yell. I spoke calmly, walking them through the consequences of their actions. The importance of systems, the value of experience, the weight of responsibility. There. Faces reflected the realization. This was not about favoritism, not about family, not about money. It was about work, discipline, commitment, understanding, respect. They had failed. After the long silence, my mother finally admitted it. You were right. We underestimated you. My sister nodded, tears in her eyes. I could have taken the company back by force, humiliated them, sued, but I did not need to. Revenge is most powerful when it teaches without destroying. I offered them a choice. I would help stabilize the business, only if they agreed to listen, to learn, to respect the work that had been done before. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, accountability. They agreed, and I found a sense of closure. I returned to my new company stronger than ever. I had built it from scratch once. I could do it again. Only now, nothing could take it away. Asterisk, my new company grew quietly, steadily. Every client, every contract, every employee proving that what I had built once I could build again. The old company continued to struggle. Mistakes piled up. Deadlines missed. Employees leaving quietly. My mother and sister finally facing the consequences of their confidence. They started calling again, apologizing, pleading. I listened. Without anger, without harsh words, silence carried the lesson. By now, the realization had landed. They had overestimated their ability and underestimated mine. Months passed. My new company flourished. new clients, new partnerships, steady growth. Proof that the builder is more important than the building. The system more important than the name. The work more important than the title. My mother and sister came to me one last time. Humility in their voices, remorse in their eyes. We underestimated you, she said. I did not know what I was doing. I am sorry, my sister added. I listened, calm, patient, not because I wanted apologies, but because I wanted acknowledgement and closure. I did not take the business back by force. I did not humiliate them publicly. I let reality teach the lesson. I smiled quietly. Because the lesson had been learned. They had faced their own failures. I had risen, stronger, wiser, untouchable. Asterisk, I had lost. But I had gained independence, clarity, freedom. I had been forced to start over. And I'd done it again. Better, smarter, untouchable. The old company finally admitted the truth publicly. Employees posted carefully. Social media hinted at mismanagement. Clients expressed concern. And the world began to see the fragility of what they had tried to take. Meanwhile, my company thrived. New clients, new partnerships, steady growth. Proof that the builder is more important than the building. The system more important than the name. The work more important than the title. I realized the true power of patience and strategy. The greatest revenge is not in destruction. It is in rising, in thriving, in proving silently that what belongs to you cannot be diminished by betrayal. I reflected on everything, the betrayal, the humiliation, the loss, and I realized I'd gained more than they could ever take away: wisdom, independence, strength, freedom. Asterisk, the greatest power is not in controlling others, but in controlling yourself. The greatest lesson is that trust must be earned, not assumed, even with those closest to you. I have been betrayed, yes, but I had also been awakened. And from that awakening came a life no one could take away. Old company continued to crumble. My new company flourished quietly but surely, every decision measured, every client chosen carefully, every employee selected with precision. I did not flaunt success. I let results speak. Contracts signed. New employees onboarded. Systems perfected. I watched quietly. I built slowly, deliberately. Every mistake they made reminded me of the importance of patience and foresight. Every misstep they took was a lesson I had already learned. Months later, they came to me again. Hesitant, humble, seeking guidance. I listened, offered advice sparingly, only what was necessary. They were learning too late that experience cannot be stolen. Asterisk, by now I understood. The ultimate truth. People who betray rarely realize what they have done until consequences catch up. My mother and sister faced reality one mistake at a time. I observed. I stayed silent. I allowed them to feel the weight of their own decisions. I did not seek revenge. In anger, I did not humiliate them publicly. My victory was in patience, in letting them experience the fragility of what they had tried to take. Every failed project, every lost client, every internal conflict reminded them of what I had built and why it mattered. Meanwhile, my new company became a quiet success. A business built not on shortcuts, but on discipline, on foresight, and on experience. Every step I took reinforced the lesson. True power is not in titles, not in ownership, not in family connections. True power comes from skill, determination, and resilience. Asterisk, I realized the ultimate moral. True strength is shown not through revenge, but through resilience, patience, strategy. Betrayal reveals who people truly are. It does not define your worth. Building your own path independently and with discipline ensures no one can steal your power. Silence and observation are often more effective than anger and confrontation. Personal growth and success are the ultimate response to injustice. I had been betrayed, yes, but I had risen above. I had rebuilt. I had reclaimed my life, not with anger, not with force, but with patience, intelligence, resilience. No betrayal, no matter how personal, can stop someone who refuses to give up, who learns from the pain, who channels it into growth. I had been betrayed, but I had also been awakened. And from that awakening came freedom, strength, and a life no one could ever take away. Asterisk.